Okay, let's take a look at shutter speed selection on this Nikon F2 AS. It has shutter speeds ranging from, on the dial, 1 second to 1/2000th of a second, plus a B setting for bulb. And then surrounding the shutter button here is this dial here, this collar, which can be set to L for locking it so that it doesn't accidentally go off, and the time setting, or T. Now that is the mode that we can be on, along with the speed here being set to bulb setting to access speeds from 30 seconds on down to 2 seconds. And we do that once we have this set on the bulb setting, and this collar here set on the T for time. We can make use of the self-timer here to give us those longer exposure speeds. For instance, let's set this to, here's the mark here. We'll set this to 6 seconds. Right around 6 seconds. Now when we press the shutter button, activate that, get it cocked and ready to go, then 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. Voila! There you have your timed exposure. Now the settings here don't have to be to these exact numbers. It actually can go, I'll cock this again, you can set it for in between. I mean, we can set it for, say, 5 seconds, right around there. Same kind of thing. 3, 4, 5. Voila. And then when you're done taking the multiple time exposures, the long exposures, then what we can do, we can put this collar back onto the middle setting, which is normal operation, and then we can have access to a variety of features. Now, if you needed to utilize, or wanted to utilize a cable release, the traditional cable release is usually this type of arrangement, and would fit into, you'd screw it into a socket. Usually that's part of the shutter button. But in this case, because you have that collar around there, we need a special adapter if you want to use a cable release. And you need something like this, which has the screw on the one part for screwing into the thing here. Then we can screw a cable release into that. And then have access to, make sure that's wound here, have access to releasing the shutter remotely. Now this is on all the F2 bodies, and it's a nice thing to have a camera body which is reliable, which doesn't require too much of an upgrade other than changing the meter prism arrangement here, in which case you can access, like this has built-in light meter, and you can get ones that do not have light meters in them. The original F2 had just a basic finder, prism finder, and then the different subsequent finders that were high-level finders had some sort of CDS type of metering system. And so on the meter here, you activate the metering system simply by pulling this out. You can see that red dot there, expose that. Then it sends power from the battery that's in here, the single battery, to the meter, and the battery only powers the meter. The battery is not needed for powering the camera. The camera is totally mechanical otherwise, the camera body. And here it has the ability, when you're adjusting exposure, to show you up here as to when you're got proper exposure, it will then light. This here is kind of like a battery check here, just doing that. But you can also, in the finder, it gives you the indication of, you have parts of the finder and the that show you the shutter speed that it's set at in there, and shows you the lens aperture. It gets that information from the lens from a little window there, and then it's transferred into the finder so you can see what aperture you're at. And then putting that up to your eye, you can get an indication on there as to when you're got proper exposure. It'll work better if I have an actual lens on there. And when you put this back in, it totally shuts off the metering system, and it's not drawing any power. The battery that I have in here is one that I've had in there for years, and it still works. Now, another thing I want to show you is, with this being a professional level type of camera, it doesn't have a flash shoe on it because of the interchangeable finders there. If you wanted to use a flash on camera, then you have to use something like this. This here is made for the Nikon F, but many F products will work on the F2. This here, just a matter of sliding that onto the rewind crank there, sliding that into place, and you can use a PC cord then between the camera connection there, the camera PC outlet, and the PC connection on the flash. Like here we have the Nikon SP15. And then that can be mounted on here. You have the connection there, and you'd have access to flash, and then the flash in this case has auto settings and manual ones, so you have some flexibility there with how you want your flash shots to be. And so that is that. And so it's a very neat system. You'll find all kinds of videos based upon this camera and reviews online. And so many of them say this is probably the best Nikon that has ever been made. Mechanically, it works with flawlessly through the years, and it has, the unique ways of handling things like the shutter speeds. For instance, it has shutter speeds here which range, of course, from the bulb, and then 1 second to 1/30th and 1/60th of a second. Now once it gets to here, that little line, that's 90th of a second. That's the sync speed, flash sync speed. And these positions here, going on to the top speed of 1/2000th of a second, are all colored differently, because these speeds, you don't have to use just that right on that speed. You can use an in-between speed. And it'll be perfectly fine. And it'll give you roughly that, pretty much, that speed, whatever is needed. And so, like I showed you before, utilize the self-timer to give you shutter speeds from 2 seconds to 10 seconds. And here are the eyepiece shutter for when you're doing long exposures like that. Now, something that you don't find on the Pro digital cameras of today is that the finders on these, you could remove them. You push in on this a little bit and put it down. That'll release a forward release. And then you push a little button on the back. Not always easy to do, but that would allow you to remove, to loosen up and remove the, there we go, the other part of it. And you can use a variety of finders for it. You can get the ones that turn them into the other models. And you can also, then at this point, change focusing screens. With a little push of that, it'll release that, and Nikon F and F2 screens can be used. And we'll put this back in here, and we rotate this until it makes a connection. Oops, wasn't down far enough. There we go. Until it clicks into place. There we go. Above here you have for setting your film speed that you have the film in the camera. It says ASA here. That's the American system that was used in the past. And then the European system was then DIN. Nowadays they just look at it as ISO for relative film, relative speed, relative sensitivity to light. And so that is that, the amazing and fun Nikon F2. And then I'll be taking it out along with my other favorite Nikon film SLR, the Nikon FG, and take those out and see what we can do with them. The Nikon FG. This was pretty much my go-to camera to take along with hiking when I wanted a lightweight type of camera in gear. I would carry around the Nikon FG along with a 35mm lens perhaps, and a 50mm and a 135, and even a 2-power teleconverter. And with those I could shoot practically anything that I came across in hiking. It's a very compact, lightweight type of camera. It was Nikon's first camera to offer a program shooting mode. There's aperture priority automatic as well as programmed mode, and then full metered manual, along with 2 mechanical shutter speeds that didn't even require the battery power. 90th of a second, which is also the flash sync speed, and bulb. Neither of those used the battery power. So if your battery ever went out on you, you still had access to a couple speeds. Somewhat limiting, but you still had possibilities of being able to use the camera still. other features of the camera was that it had this unique configuration of incorporating the shutter dial, the shutter button, and the crank all in one compact little configuration here. It offered a beeper that you could turn on and off for exposure, gave you exposure compensation control, and it offered even a little button on the front here, which if you came across a backlit situation, a press of that would automatically give you +2 EV of exposure compensation. It didn't have any of the depth of field preview button on it, but all you would have to do, I don't have a lens on it right now, but all you would have to do if you really wanted to check depth of field preview is temporarily unmount the lens, just turn it over enough so that it is no longer linked up to the camera's exposure system, and it'll stop down the lens to the aperture that you have set at. And you just remount it for when you're ready to shoot. Very compact, even when utilized with the and also compact auto winder. You could still fit it into a corner of your camera case. So made for a very convenient, lightweight, compact system. I liked this camera so much that the camera model, the Nikon FG, that when this is my third one, and the two previous versions, that when they had jammed up or broke down, I went out and got another one. The shutter speeds that it has on it are quartz timed. And worked perfectly fine. As I said, there is two mechanical speeds, 90th of a second, and bulb, as well as the aperture priority automatic, and then press the button to release that, and I can switch it over to the the programmed mode, in which case it would set the shutter speed and aperture for you. And in order to, when it was on that mode, you would set the lens aperture to its smallest aperture, its highest f number, and what would be its smallest lens aperture on the lens, or at least 16 or smaller, and it would then activate the system where it would give you the proper shutter speed and aperture for the situation. And perhaps we can take this out sometime and shoot some pictures with it. It was a favorite of mine in the past, along with my pro bodies that I had used, such as the Nikon F2, F3, and F4. And it was just one of my favorite 35mm SLR cameras for convenience, for being able to take along with me on hikes through the woods and backpack trips. It worked out just great. The Nikon FG